to Ray Hadley in the morning on 2GB 873 and network stations across Australia.
20 minutes away from 12, Tony Sheldon, the National Secretary of the Transport Workers Union, has kindly made himself available at short notice. G'day, Tony.
G'day, Ray.
Mate, this started out of another one of these trucks caught in the harbour tunnel, and we went from one thing to another, and a listener sent me in photos. It's Scott's from Mount Gambier. Then I got inundated with your members ringing me, talking about 457 visa holders, and they didn't, and I won't identify Scots. I'm not saying Scots do it, but it appears some do and some don't. But talking about having 2 and 3 drivers, which is legal in some instances, 2 particularly, I don't know about 3, in the cabin, and blokes doing a one-day course, getting their licence for a large vehicle and not being able to back it into a loading dock, or, you know, not being able to do. And so I thought, oh, maybe it's just anecdotal. But then I got inundated with emails and calls from your people saying, no, it's not anecdotal, it's happening. Are you aware of it?
Well, just moving off Scott's for a sec, so I'll come back to it if you like. But this broader issue about 457s and labour grants for overseas drivers, the Australian Trucking Association, for the federal government, has been pushing to bring drivers in from overseas, and there are companies which are now bringing large numbers of drivers into the country in what is the most dangerous industry in the country, with 15 times more likely than any other industry.
We've got a bad line here. I hope it gets better. Are these professional drivers, or are they being brought here and trained when they get here?
Well, this is the problem. They're supposed to be professional drivers with skills, but there's no testing except what's done in, you know, India, China, you name it, and skills that's supposed to exist, but skills that are questionable whether they exist at all, coming into an environment that they haven't been experienced in before, not knowing their laws, their rights. And what's particularly galling is a number of these trucking companies that have brought people in are there's 41,000 truck drivers which are unemployed, and 8,700 forklift drivers which are unemployed that are looking for work and can't get it because these companies aren't providing the opportunity for them. And to see overseas drivers coming into an industry that may or may not have skills from overseas, when they one, those jobs could be done for Australians, and secondly, we should be training people to go into those jobs, let alone the fact that there are people there prepared to do that work already in the country. I find the whole question about the government announcing today about making it easier to bring overseas workers in when we've got higher unemployment than the US. We've got in certainly in areas of Sydney, massive youth unemployment. And this is an industry where you can bring people in, give them a reasonable amount of training, and bring them into a semi-skilled industry, which requires a lot of capacity to drive these trucks properly. And it really does mean that we're now cutting the opportunity off for people that see trucking as a appropriate career for them.
Yeah, sure. But why did the previous government introduce 457s, particularly in the trucking industry? If there was no need for it, as you've enunciated there, with the number of unemployed drivers we have, why did the Gillard-Rudd government introduce 457s for trucking?
I absolutely agree with you, Ray. I think the avalanche of 457 visas by successive governments is absolutely inappropriate. Skilled migration for skilled work is appropriate, but replacing Australians who could be doing that work is absolutely inappropriate. And when successive governments have decreased funding in TAFEs and education and traineeships, now we've seen 37% decrease in traineeships right across industries, when we should be putting more money and more time in to try to bring Australians into a skilled nation, rather than saying, let's bring somebody from overseas in a semi-skilled profession that may or may not have the skills when an Australian could do it. I find that treachery to the country, quite frankly. I think that successive governments have done that, and unfortunately, this government's announced it's going to open up the floodgates even further.
See, my concern, this is one of the most dangerous industries in Australia, and what I've grown up with, and you've grown up with, is a generational thing. Most of the truckies I run into, the blokes my age, approaching 60, how long have you been doing it, mate? Well, from the time I turned 18, mate, I've been doing it. I've been doing it for 42 years. Yes. And then, without owning the company, it passes down, and Dad's a trucker, the son's a trucker, and it's a generational thing. And the experience of the father's passed to the son, and that's what I grew up with. Now, I know things are different now. I mean, and it's not viewed as being the most glamorous profession in the world, and it's bloody hard work, and it's demanding on the individual and also their family, being away from home so often.
Yes.
But I would understand why people might want to move away from it and not do interstate stuff and long haul stuff. But I'm concerned that you basically confirmed today what I'm told by your members, that it's happening. That we've got blokes, who who purport to be professional drivers from India, and I'm told a lot of them do come from India, judging by what your drivers are telling me. But arrive here and do a day course, and next thing they're on a B-double somewhere with another bloke sitting in the passenger seat who's got less idea than they have.
Well, I have no doubt that that's correct. There is a flood of labour being brought in that are being exploited. They're getting paid less than Australians, and that is under existing laws, but there's deficient market testing. But they're about to get rid of even that deficient market testing and wiping it out altogether. Okay,
now what did you want to say about Scots? Because we need to go back to that.
Quickly on Scots. So we've done some checking this morning. We understand there was a subcontractor for Scots, and we're further investigating it. But 457 visa holders in Scots, they don't actually have them, except they had a couple of maintenance workers in Mount Gambier, and they're now permanent residents.
Well, that's why I was careful not to link it to... talking about Scots, they got their own problems. Earlier this year they got fined $1.25 million for lapses in the way they run the business. But no one... And
I got to say too, Ray, on that was they copped what they deserved to have copped. Sure. Give the credit to the new management, and that is that they've now got changeovers, which means for your listeners that they have a new driver, fresh driver comes in when they're doing the run up to from Mount Gambier up to Brisbane. They've put a whole series of proper procedures in, which they've been working with the drivers to get this on track. So, I'm the first person to get a bit of a kick in the backside.
I know that. They need to do a bit more work, Tony, because I can tell you there's been a court attendance notice issued to the driver from Scots Mount Gambier today for doing 13.5 hours in a 24-hour period, and he's now at Rozelle being made to have a break by the RMS and the coppers.
And it's shocking because there has to be a lot more done, because what's happening with these companies, and this is even more generally, this goes way beyond Scots. I'm in Adelaide today, and they've done 70 trucks they've inspected, and they've found 35 of them with serious defaults. Shocking. We've had a terrible, horrific death here, as we do in the industry literally across the country each week. And what we're finding is the amount of pressure that's coming on from big clients, and particularly retailers like Coles, is they're sweating the transport companies, we're sweating the trucks and sweating the drivers, and we're finding maintenance getting worse, we're finding drivers doing longer hours, and now, of course, the answer to all that pressure is to bring overseas drivers in who have less rights, because if you speak up as an overseas driver, you get deported.
You're back on the boat.
You're back on the boat.
Yeah. Okay, Tony, thank you for jumping on the line so quickly.
My pleasure, Ray.
That's Tony Sheldon, National Secretary of the Transport Workers Union, confirming what the drivers have been telling us all day.